How you doing, everyone? Hi, No Idea, and Flippin' Zippo, and Gary, and Indrajit, and Bruce. How's everything going today? Um, we, I think it must have been for the last 48 hours. We've had constant snow. It just snowed and snowed and snowed. So we have, uh, but it only maybe 3 or 4 inches, not much, not for us anyway. Hey, Clyde, how you doing? From Flyover Statesville. uh, okay. Today, what I want to talk about sort of stems from some other discussions that we've had, and that has to do with something I'm afraid to bring up because it's people seem to be fairly divided on it. So I'll greet some other people before I start talking. Hey, Raj and Andrew and Andrew. Hi, Andrew and Andrew. Right, back to back. Hey, Junior. Gorgeous sunrise coming in my house. Yeah, we finally got a clear day, just beautifully clear. It's been overcast and snowing. Every time it's like living in a snow globe. But now it's all gone. Our plow is finished, and so we're in good shape. Okay, so let's talk about this. One of the things that struck me is two things. First of all, some of the best watchmakers are the worst businessmen or businesswomen. Okay, and the reason that I say that is that all of their energy and all of their talent is focused on making watches and on the skills for making the goal in life is to make the best watches possible, not to make the most money. I mean, it's a very idealistic group, and as a result, a lot of them go broke at one time or another, and they get forced out of the company that they started. The most recent example is probably Marco Lang and Lang and Heim, and now he has his own company. But there are some who, and I think, who are very sharp business people. One is F.P. Jord. I think he knows what he's doing. I think Kari Voutilainen is a much better businessman than most people realize, but he's also got an incredible amount of talent. And some companies that I think are more innovative and creative are companies like H. Moser. And so you have these different, those are companies. On the other hand, you have these companies that come under the umbrella of a watch group, and they're much more practical. They, on the one hand, they like to have this very creative, talented craftsman group of watchmakers and sell watches. But also too, they're in the business of making money. So anyway, and as Clyde just pointed out, a lot of them have saved them. I mean, literally have saved them. You take Vacheron Constantin, Jaeger-LeCoultre. I mean, my God, you think here? These are two very old and powerful companies. They were on the skids, otherwise they wouldn't become part of Richemont. Same thing with Allonga and some of these other companies that we think, well, these guys are really great, but without that, and I think that's the point. But there's another point too to be made, and that is that where you might find a lot of time taken and what may be considered wasted time or wasted effort for a money-making firm, maybe something else. Let's take a little extra time and do the Anglaise better. Or let's do this. Let's try putting in oh God, what are they called? Remontoir Egalite. This is something that very few watches do that. And it takes, not only does it take talent, but it's something you can't do very fast. Now, on the other hand, I was looking, I sort of stirred up the thing about silicone hairsprings. And as far as I'm concerned, you can take them or leave them. I'll leave them. But the point is, why would they do that? Well, they're better than most metal hairsprings because they're totally non-magnetic. They're not affected as much by heat and cold. There are all kinds of advantages, and they keep their shape. They keep their whatever you put them in. They're gonna keep that. Well, that is an advantage. The disadvantage is that you can't tweak them and some other kinds of things. But as far as the actual functionality, they're great. But so's quartz. Quartz, since it first came out, it's better than using the escapement type of regulator that we have now with the pallet fork and so forth. It just does a better job than a hairspring. Quartz does. So it's not so much an argument of whether better technology works better, because it does. And you eventually end up with a smartwatch, okay, or in my case, with an iPhone, or this gizmo I'm using now to communicate with you guys. But so you have something that if it works, if it sells, do more of it. And if it's really innovative and interesting, but people don't want it as much, get rid of it. I'm thinking of the Prince, which I think was that Rolex made, the Cellini Prince. It's a beautiful watch. I mean, you can flip it over, and actually, it's one of the few watches that Rolex made that you could flip over and take a look at the movement. Not only that, but they have the well, I don't know if it was let's see, what was it? I'm not sure whether you'd call it guilloche or you'd call it engraving, but we'll call it guilloche. The guilloche on the front of the watch conformed with the guilloche on the movement. Amazing. Nobody, I mean, it's just such a beautiful watch. But they 96'd it primarily for financial reasons. Now, Rolex is clearly not part of a group, but it has the power and the kind of smart business mindset that groups provide, sort of what I'll call wayward, crazy watchmakers. I mean, you have some of the greatest watchmakers had to be held up by somebody else buying them, like Daniel Roth, for example, or Roger Dubuis. And some of them went with other companies for a while. Gerald Genta with Bulgari, and so was let me see, Daniel Roth. On the other hand, though, when you look at companies like Breguet, which are now owned by Swatch, Breguet was on the ropes until they brought in a really talented guy in the form of Daniel Roth to save him. So anyway, this is what I want to talk about. I mean, do these conglomerates say, okay, we're going to bring some financial discipline to you, and they do, and they need it. But is that at the expense of taking away some of the more innovative things that they can do with traditional watchmaking? Okay, let's see who you got here. Let's see. Hi, Andre. How you doing? Jay, good to see you. Desmo. Good. Hey, Desmo. You get your morning coffee. I didn't get mine. I got behind the curve a little. So you get your morning coffee. We'll make this quick so I can get to my coffee. Now it's the watch formerly known as the Prince. Jeez. Okay. All right. So in terms of innovation, I mean, I don't know, and I may be wrong. And in fact, there may be sort of a zero-sum game where you have better business, less creativity, better creativity, not as much business. I'm thinking of some companies that have been, what are some companies say, now these guys have really been creative in the traditional sense, not that they added something, that wasn't. I see that with H. Moser with their wandering hours and some of the other things that they did. And they're sticking with traditional watchmaking with the Strawman hairspring. So you have, I better turn this thing off before it drives us all crazy. There we go. Talk to you later. That was my iPhone lets out some kind of yell every time I get an email, and so I have to turn it off. Oh, let's see. Lee, you're recovering from snow and the cold. We'll do the same thing around April, I think. Right now, it's one of those courier knives kind of landscapes we have right now. It's about I don't know how much snow there is, because it snowed a foot, then snowed twice more, and then it snowed again on top of that. So, but the plows come and they salt the streets, and we get around okay. Okay, so what's going on? Let's see. Just painted my oak table with watch talk. Okay, hey, no idea. That's great. Okay, flipping Zipple to war. War? What war is going on, flipping? I tell you, there's I don't want to talk about attention spans right now. Okay, so I guess one of the things that this is one thing I did want to bring up. Oh, the war from your phone. Okay. I had mentioned a friend of mine had these chain and fusee, or fusee and chain movements. He bought a whole bunch of them. And I talked to him the other day. He was in his car driving, and I asked him, I said, hey, you're still interested in selling some? And he said, yeah, but here's the thing, they're only for a clock. The movements are too big for a wristwatch. By the way, too, this thing here is my, let's see. This is a key wound pocket watch that I am encasing in a wristwatch. Those are the two holes for the key wound. So this thing has come along much better. And so it doesn't look like a wristwatch. Let's see if I think I did this last time and dropped it on the floor. Hang on a second there. I'll just take that off. Maybe I ought to file that down or something. But the thing of it is that I was so surprised how easy it was, and it has a porcelain dial to it. It was like fun, and because after we were told in no uncertain terms, after asking some of the top watchmakers in the world, hey, would you guys put together an affordable key wound watch for us? By the way, too, hi John. By the way, well, it's hi John and John. By the way, there was the other day I put up on High Horology Lounge. I put up a picture of Ciro. Can't remember it's a French last name, and he has this wonderful key wound watch that he made, and it's just beautiful. I mean, it's the kind of talent horology. This is the guy that I keep referring to. I think it's going to be the next FP Journe. So, but then the watch is $75,000, or euro, or Swiss francs. I'm not sure. It's one of those, but it's a lot. And thinking, wow, well, I can't afford that, but I can afford going to Etsy or eBay or one of those places, getting a key wound pocket watch, taking it apart, popping it into uh, a wristwatch case, and Bob's your uncle. It's not that difficult, and it's sort of fun. Now, getting it secured to it is going to be a challenge. What my one plan was, let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, I don't know where it is. The backs that you go on, the ones that I like the best are the screw-on backs, okay? And I can take my sticky ball here and just sort of screw it on. Okay, so, what I thought, okay, what I'll do is that I'll drill holes through the sapphire back on it, and I'll get some kind of drill that'll do that. But then I realized here you have these two winding knobs sticking up, and if I to screw it in, I got to have holes in there for those to stick out of. And as soon as you start to wind it, boom, it doesn't work. So I took the old one and have to figure out how to attach it. Okay, hey, C Big, how you doing, man? Okay, so anyway, so back to innovation, sort of the whole question of that. So what do you guys think? I mean, are we going to rely on very expensive watches? Is there a way that watchmakers with talent can create, in the same way that Harbring does, create watches that we can afford, yet have some of the features of the great traditional watchmakers? Hi, Thomas. How you doing, man? So this is the question I guess that I have, is that conglomerates, once they buy up a bunch of watch companies, to me, I'm not sure why they do it. You can make a lot of money in the luxury brands like LVMH is a hugely rich. Chanel is another one, and they make watches that are unbelievably good, not because they're a watchmaking company, but they hire the very best, like Agenor or Kristen Vanderklaw, for example, or some of these other guys and they have the money to pay them whatever they want. Yeah, Andrew, you hit the nail on the head. This is exactly the problem that I think it's important to address. How are we going to do that? I mean, if we've got these guys who are, like this guy Cyril, he's 75,000 for a watch, but these watches take months to create by hand, and you get a handmade one, and you can't really survive as a watchmaker doing it that way. There's I think I can even say this right in French. All right, which is using these different little sort of, I don't want to call them companies, they're more like cottage industries, and they make some part of the watch, and you rely on them to supply you with those things. I was reading this thing about Daniel Roth, currently, not in the past, and he's got this thing that looks like one of those divided jewelry boxes. And what he does is that he gets certain gears from certain places and certain parts from other places and so forth. And he's very much involved in an Stabsoj system. Let me get the correct pronunciation of that. Hang on a second. And with my what I consider a correct pronunciation, let me see, I have it written down, so Stabsoj, okay? Anyway, let me write it out. Oh man, did I lose it? Here we go. Okay. Copy here. These are the guys who work that way, establishers. Okay, let's see. There's something about all parts handmade. That is different product and likely requires and commands a higher price. Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. But using the Istab-Soz method, I'm sure I'm not saying that right again. Um, Using that, you can have a lot of handmade stuff, but they only make one thing, and from different cottages, so to speak. So they're all set up, and they have some tools, including machine tools, that they can do this with. And so you end up with something with what we'll call an individual signature that you don't get with something being ground out by some big Rolex or Omega or any of these companies that knock out hundreds of thousands of watches a year. About $5,000, Desmo. I agree. I give them a little more room. I'll say under 10,000. But you're right, Desmo. I think that when we stop and think about it, just stop and think for a second. If I'm going to spend $5,000 on anything, this requires a huge amount of research and doing all this kind of stuff. When we redid our kitchen, God, we spent months deciding, what to get for it and everything like that, and had the floor redone while we were doing it. And, we ended up with a great kitchen, but it cost a lot less than some of my watches that I went ahead and did. So I think that when we talk about something like $5,000, that can take a while to save up that amount of money over and above every other expense you have. Now, if you're really rich, that's another story. But if you're not, in other words, you're a typical watch collector. And the other thing, though, here's the other thing, Desmo, along with that $5,000 figure, I think is the whole issue of what you get for that. Now, if you're going to pay $5,000 for something, I don't want something that's run off on the whole thing is done by robots. There's Tag Heuer had this one demonstration and had all these robots working away on some stuff. And I thought, for $5,000, for a watch, when I can go down and I can knock something together from a hand wound pocket watch for a couple $100. So it's something, though. I think that we have to weigh against it. And so when we hear these things like, well, we're going to use silicon because it's the very best, it's also there's like 2 or 3 steps in making silicon hairsprings that you can skip. So it's a very economical thing. F.P. Journe, of all people, was looking at Firehouse in New York. Firehouse is a place that makes these kinds of things, and he starts doing that. I'm not interested in his watches anymore, any of them. I'll if I can find an old one I can afford. But I think it's oh boy. No idea. No, my French is terrible. Oh yes, that's it, Johnny. That's the one. Istab-le-Soz. Thank you. That's exactly the right term. Somehow I always write these things down and then I somehow erase them at the same time by there. That is the one. Istab-le-Soz. How's that? Is that any better when I say it that way? Sages. Okay, there. All right, John. I'm one of those people that terrible at foreign languages for lots of reasons. My hearing is shot. I have terrible hearing. I've always, for a long time. But Yeah, I do the best I can. I read lips. Um, but that's I guess we all got stuff we have to adapt to. But I can learn a computer language in 15 minutes. Put one of those. I don't know why. I have no idea. And I love foreign languages. I wish I could speak every one of them well, and I try to pronounce them right, and all I get is like That's pretty bad. Okay, does Rolex market million watches per year prove there's a lot of disposable income out there? Yeah, I, I won't say what I'm thinking, Lee. Well, you got 1.4 million, okay, and when you look at the number of watch fans out there, there's probably over a billion, and so that's sort of like not that much when you stop and think about it. But Lee, I think you're right about that. I mean, there is some of that money out there, but people they want to get a Rolex because then they can. Oh no, my time is up. Okay, Bruce, thank you, sir. Now listen, this is what I want to talk about this afternoon. I hope to have my three things. I hope to have my watch finished, my key wound watch. Second of all, I hope to get a hold of my friend and see if I can get a price on the Fusian chain. How many were interested in getting a Fusian chain to build a little clock with it? I thought it'd be sort of fun, so I'm one of them. Anybody else interested in that? Tissot started as... Yes, you're right. You're right, Raj. I mean, a lot of them, that's sort of the way watches were done. Okay, and here's what I want to talk about this afternoon at 4 o'clock, if you guys are going to be around or awake or whatever. One of the things that I've noticed, there are a lot of ways that people, in our discussions, like on High Horology Lounge and some of the other places, in the German Watch Group and all of these other ones that people yak on. There are a lot of things that I see repeatedly that are not very bright. I'll put it that way. And I want to say, well, if there's and they do it as drama queens. Okay, so you got a statement about a watch, which isn't very bright. And I thought, well, maybe if we sort of toss those aside, I think we could have much better discussions. I'm hoping so anyway. There aren't too many, and a lot of them I've got to sort of weed out anyway. But it's like, for our own sake, that we can have discussions where we can really get to the core of what it is in watches that we value. Okay, John, you got it at the very end, but it's good to see you. We'll be back at 4 o'clock New York time, Eastern Standard Time. You guys take care and be really safe to get through this. The COVID rates going down, thank God, but still, just still be safe and take care. See you this afternoon if you're around.